It is another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the three films that kick off April 2009 on April 3rd. How about that? Three movies on the third day of April. Who knew? But we have a return of a franchise that kind of started a little trend that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Greg Metal's follow-up to Superbad, and also something I didn't know about the last film. It was directed by the same people who did Half Nelson. So we'll take a look at all three of those movies, and we're going to start off, of course, with the biggest new release of the weekend. The gang's back together again. Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, and Jordana Brewster all working together once again in Fast and Furious. So as I said before, this movie definitely was a game changer in terms of, not really rebooting a franchise in general, but the fact that, okay, all these people were in the first Fast and Furious movie, but they didn't return for the second one or the third one. I think Paul Walker was the only one who came back for the second film, and Vin Diesel is only in the post credits of Tokyo Drift. And so, everybody went their separate ways. None of them really had success in terms of post-Fast and Furious careers. The only one who had that was Vin Diesel. And even then, after CLIPLESS, he didn't really have a whole lot of big successes, with the exception of The Pacifier. Paul Walker had started some pretty good movies overall. Michelle Rodriguez was in a couple of movies overall that maybe weren't successful in terms of financial success, but some of them were actually kind of good. Same thing with Jordana Brewster, I feel like Jordana Brewster of the four was kind of the weak link of all the ones who went on to do stuff after the Fast and Furious films ended. She didn't really have that many big successes after that, but the fact that they've got everybody back together again, and now they have the director of Tokyo Drift, Justin Lin, coming on board here, as well as the same writer from that movie, Chris Morgan, and nobody really had a whole lot of hope that this was going to make any money, because it's the fourth installment of a series that in essential had been kind of really just been chugging along and really just kind of fell apart thanks to Tokyo Drift and Too Fast, Too Furious. So the expectations for this were very low. The fact they were getting everybody back together, nobody really thought it was going to really impact anything. Everyone kind of thought that this was kind of the end of the road for the Fast and Furious series in general. And then it turned out to not be the case whatsoever. This thing unexpectedly performed over expectations. It made $70 million on its first weekend alone, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And it essentially began a new renaissance for the Fast and Furious films in general. And a lot of other action film franchises saw that and realized, well, you know what? If the Fast and Furious could do it, why not us? Look at what happened with Mission Impossible. A couple years later with Ghost Protocol. Look at how that trend started up again. And then what's another one? Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. In a way, got a big reboot. Got a big, once Jurassic World came out, we rebooted that franchise around. Star Wars. That franchise started back up again. And then, more recently, the Bad Boys movies. The Bad Boys movies got back on track with Bad Boys for Life in 2020, and then recently we had Bad Boys Ride or Die. So yeah, Fast and Furious was kind of one of the first movies to really, take an action franchise and bring it back to a sense that we can continue making these movies as long as people want to go and see them. And sure enough, people came out in droves to see this one, and it helped to reignite the Fast and Furious series in general. And yeah, the movie itself nowadays isn't really all that good, especially considering what came afterwards, but still better than some of the more recent Fast and Furious movies, I'll say that. In the film, Dominic Toretto, once again, played by Vin Diesel, and FBI agent Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker, are forced to work together to avenge the murder of Toretto's lover, Letty Ortiz, played by Michelle Rodriguez, and apprehend drug lord Arturo Braga, played by John Ortiz. Oh yeah, Letty is dead. She's never going to come back to this series anytime soon. Just pretend the other movies don't exist right now. Just pretend that she's dead for good. Oh no, she's really gone. And, okay, yeah, you get the idea. But, as I said before, this is definitely in the middle of the Fast and Furious movies. For one, it's the only thing this really is notable for helping to get the series back on track, to becoming a fun film overall. The action sequences are still tons of fun. The script is a mess. This thing goes all over the place, and just really, you're only there just to see the special effects and the visuals in general. And I always say that visuals don't always make the movie, but in this case, after what they had done before with the previous Fast and Furious movies, this is one of those few times that I would say, okay, you get a free pass on this one, because these are some pretty damn good, fun action sequences in general. Plus, it's good seeing all these characters back together again. It's good to see all these characters back after so many years without them being there, and it helped to reinvigorate the Fast and Furious series as a whole and get it to the point where it is now, a billion-dollar franchise that, even though, like I said, the last couple movies have not been as good as the ones that came in between 4 and 7, 4 and 8, I should say, because Fury 7 was great. I mean, Fury 7, I think, is still the best of the series. Yeah, this is definitely one. I mean, if I had to rank the Fast and Furious movies in general, let's just go with that. If I had to rank them from bottom to top, I would probably say, Fast X maybe is at the bottom. Fate of the Furious is the second worst. Let me think. Give me 1 second. So I'd probably put it Fast X, Fate of the Furious, bottom to top again. Fast X, Fate of the Furious, Tokyo Drift, Too Fast, Too Furious, F9, Fast and Furious 6, Fast 5, not Furious 7, The Fast and the Furious, Fast and Furious, and then Furious 7 at the top of the list. Like, Furious 7 is still the top of the list in general. I didn't include Hobbs and Shaw. I really liked Hobbs and Shaw, though. I did like that movie a lot, but Furious 7 I still think is the best of this entire series, and this is kind of in the middle of the series in general. But like I said, it's notable for helping to bring all these characters back and helping to reignite the series in general, and on that front, you got to give a credit for that. And like I said, definitely a mess in terms of a story, but God, it's fun to watch on so many levels for the action alone. And yeah, it's a real good fun movie. One I'd say, yeah, definitely check this one out. If you want to see a return to form for the Fast and Furious series, this is definitely the film to check out. So I highly recommend Fast and Furious. With all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, which is Adventureland. Another really great movie from 2009 that sadly got overlooked at the box office. This was Greg Metallo's follow-up to Superbad. And, this film centers around a recent college graduate played by Jesse Eisenberg who takes a job at a rundown local amusement park to save for a trip to Europe. Comes across a bunch of colorful characters, including Kristen Stewart as his love interest, Ryan Reynolds, Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, Martin Starr, and Margarita Oliveira. And part of me a little bit kind of has more affection for it because this was filmed around here. It was filmed at Kennywood. It's our big theme park around here, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't been there in almost 10 years. I mean, we used to go there every summer when I was a kid, but then between 2008 and 2018, we didn't go very often because, it was getting too expensive, and there was also a lot of problems with teenagers there that we just didn't want to hassle that in general. Well, but I did go back there in 2018, and yeah, definitely that 10-year period between the last time I was there in 2008 and the time I was back there in 2018. Definitely a notable difference, but still fun it's still fun regardless. And yeah, it's been a while since I've been there, and I guarantee you that there's been a lot more changes there than there was the last time I was there. But it's always cool to see a place on the big screen. And yeah, they did a pretty good job of using Kennywood's advantages to the theme park in this movie. Plus, you've got a lot of great characters played by some really good actors. A lot of really good actors all across the board in here. The comedy is really good, too. This isn't trying to be another Superbad knockoff. This is Greg Metallo doing something that is kind of on the same level of Superbad, but never feels like it's trying to be the next Superbad in general. It's a film that feels very different, feels very unique, and it is a well-made film. It's a film that's very funny, very creative, very well done. One of my favorite underrated movies from this year. Adventureland is one I'd highly recommend. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, Sugar. And as I said before, this was a film that I had no idea was made by the same people who made Half Nelson. Technically, it was only Ryan Fleck who was the director of that movie, but this time it's Anna Bonin and Ryan Fleck. And it follows the story of Miguel Santos, also known as Sugar, played by Algeniz Perez Soto, a Dominican pitcher for San Pedro de Macorís. You can tell that I don't know this pronunciation very well, so don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation of it, but San Pedro de Macorís, who struggles to make it in the big leagues and pulls himself and his family out of poverty. Playing professional at a baseball academy in the Dominican Republic, Miguel finally gets his break at age 19 when he advances to the United States minor league system. But when his play on the mound falters, he begins to question the single-mindedness of his life's ambition. And like I said before, these are the same directors that would later go on to do Captain Marvel. And they've done some pretty good movies. It's kind of a funny story. And then just recently, there's been a lot of good word of mouth on Freaky Tales. But, I liked Hap Nelson, and I found this one to actually be kind of pretty good. I like the performances all across the board in here. A lot of relatively unknowns in here. I think the biggest name in this cast here is Andre Holland, and even then, it's not really like the biggest name out there, but he was, of course, in Moonlight, which came out 7 years later and won the Oscars for Best Picture. And this is an engaging little sports film. It works because the acting overall is great. It's a very engaging story about this kid and about this guy and how he's trying to get into professional baseball and it doesn't really work out for him. And it's one of those little surprises that I did not see coming. It's one of those films where you see it, you don't really think about it all that much because it doesn't get like a big overall impact, or it doesn't really make a big impact in general, but it's a film that works really well. I think it's a very enjoyable film. I think it's a very entertaining film. It's an underrated little gem, one that I was really not expecting a whole lot from, and I was really pleasantly surprised by what I saw. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a very underrated film, but if you've liked these two directors' works before and about in their Ryan Fleck, Sugar's definitely one to check out. It's a very underrated little gem I found, and I'm glad I searched it out because it is a pretty good film. And so, with all of that said, we're going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and the next time we meet, certainly a very interesting set of movies we've got here because some of them are not as good as you think they are. Some of them have a lot of interesting stories behind the scenes. But on this Easter weekend of 2009, which is coincidental because as I'm recording this, we're just a couple of days away from Easter 2025, we have Hannah Montana the movie starring Miley Cyrus. And, of course, based off the Disney Channel series, we also have Seth Rogen starring in the second mall cop movie of 2009, Observer Report, which in some ways is a lot better than the Paul Blart movie. But in other ways, it's complicated. We'll get to that. And then it's not really complicated for the last one because everyone can agree that Dragon Ball Evolution is a steaming pile of garbage. But, that's going to be a very, very fun one to talk about. But if you've never seen Dragon Ball, you can just look at the trailers for it and look at the clips and be like, wow, this does not feel like Dragon Ball at all. But all a good time. We will save that for tomorrow's show. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell. That's where you get updates on new videos when they come out. And we do post new videos here every day. So with all that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.